Welcome to Almost Alone. Tonight's episode is about the particular vulnerability of being somewhere unfamiliar. A place where strangers have keys to your room, where no one knows your face, where the walls are thin and the locks aren't yours. Hotels are supposed to feel safe. Anonymous, maybe, but safe. You check in, you lock the door, you sleep in a bed thousands of people have slept in before you. And in the morning, you leave. Nothing happens. Nothing ever happens. Until it does. These two stories are about women who traveled alone for work. Both of them did everything right. Both of them trusted the systems that were supposed to protect them. And both of them learned that a locked door only works if no one else has the key. Before we begin, if you're new here, welcome. If you've been listening for a while, thank you for coming back. If these stories stay with you, consider subscribing. It helps more people find the channel. And if you have your own story you'd like to share, there's a link in the description. Let's begin. I'm 29 now. This happened 3 years ago when I was 26. I was working as a pharmaceutical sales rep at the time, which meant I traveled constantly. 2 or 3 trips a month, sometimes more. Different cities, different hotels, different client dinners. I got used to living out of a suitcase. I got used to sleeping in unfamiliar beds. I thought I was good at it. Careful. Aware. I always parked under lights. I always checked the back seat of my rental car before getting in. I always told someone where I was staying. I thought that was enough. I was wrong. The trip that changed everything was to a smaller city in the south. The kind of place with one airport, a dying downtown, and a lot of chain restaurants clustered near the highway exit. I'd been there twice before for work, just another stop on the rotation. My flight was delayed 3 hours because of weather in Chicago, which meant I didn't land until almost 10 at night. By the time I got my rental car and drove to the hotel, it was nearly 11. I was exhausted, the kind of tired where your eyes burn and your thoughts move slower than they should. The hotel was a mid-tier property, not a major chain, more of a regional brand I'd seen in a few southern states. 3 stories, brick exterior, a faded sign out front advertising free breakfast and HBO. The parking lot was mostly empty, which made sense for a Tuesday night. I grabbed my bag and walked into the lobby. There was only one person at the front desk. A man, maybe mid-30s. Thin build, dark hair pushed back from his forehead, wearing the standard polo shirt with the hotel logo. He smiled when I walked in. Checking in, I gave him my name and handed over my ID and credit card. He typed something into the computer, and I stood there scrolling through work emails on my phone, not really paying attention. Traveling alone, I looked up. He was still smiling, but something about the question made me pause. It wasn't unusual. Hotel staff ask that kind of thing sometimes, but the way he said it felt different. Less like a procedural question and more like a confirmation. Yes, I said. He nodded slowly, still holding my credit card. Brave. I don't think I could do it. All those unfamiliar places. Different beds every night. You never really know who's around, do you? I didn't know how to respond to that. The comment hung in the air between us, strange and heavy. I just smiled politely and waited for my room key. He handed it over, 3rd floor, room 312, and told me the elevator was around the corner. As I turned to leave, he added, "If you need anything tonight, just call down. I'm here until 6. I thanked him and walked away. In the elevator, I thought about the interaction. It was strange, but I couldn't pinpoint why. Maybe he was just awkward. Maybe he was making small talk and it came out wrong. I was tired. I was probably overthinking it. I found my room, swiped the key, and went inside. It was a standard hotel room. Queen bed with a floral comforter, a desk with a chair that didn't quite match, a TV mounted on the wall at an angle, that suggested it had been adjusted 100 times by 100 different guests. The blackout curtains were drawn tight, blocking whatever view there might have been. The room smelled faintly of industrial cleaner and something else underneath, the accumulated ghost of everyone who'd slept there before. I dropped my bag on the luggage rack and sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, letting the silence settle around me. The room had a deadbolt on the door, the kind with a thumb turn on the inside. I walked over and locked it, listening to the heavy click of the mechanism sliding into place. Then I stood there for a moment, staring at the door, thinking about what the man at the desk had said. You never really know who's around, do you? I shook it off, took a long shower, letting the hot water loosen the knots in my shoulders, changed into pajamas, checked my emails one more time, and set an alarm for 6:30. I had a client meeting at 9, and I needed whatever sleep I could get. I turned off the lamp and lay there in the dark, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the building, the hum of the ice machine somewhere down the hall, the distant murmur of a television through the wall, the occasional creak of footsteps overhead. I was almost asleep when the knock came. 3 slow taps, deliberate, patient. My eyes opened. I lay there in the dark, perfectly still, listening. For a moment, nothing, just silence. Then 3 more taps. I got out of bed quietly, my bare feet cold on the carpet, and walked to the door. The peephole was a small brass circle at eye level, and I leaned in close, pressing my eye against it. It was him, the night auditor, standing in the hallway with his hands clasped in front of him, illuminated by the harsh fluorescent light. He was looking directly at the peephole, directly at me, like he knew I was there, like he'd been waiting for me to look. My stomach tightened. Yes, I said through the door. I didn't open it. Sorry to bother you. His voice was muffled but clear. There's an issue with the credit card you used at check-in. The charge didn't go through. Would you mind coming down to the desk so we can run it again? I stood there, hand pressed flat against the door, thinking. It didn't make sense. I'd used that card hundreds of times. I had plenty of available credit. And even if there was an issue, couldn't he just call me? Why come up to the room? Can it wait until morning? I asked. I have an early meeting. A pause. Longer than it should have been. It really should be sorted out tonight, he said. Hotel policy. It'll only take a minute. Something in his tone had shifted. The friendliness was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that sounded like patience wearing thin. I'll take care of it first thing in the morning, I said. Before I check out. Silence. I watched through the peephole. He was still standing there, not moving. His expression hadn't changed, but he wasn't leaving either. All right, he finally said. Have a good night. He turned and walked down the hallway toward the elevator. I watched until he disappeared around the corner. I stepped back from the door. My heart was beating too fast. I told myself I was overreacting. Credit card issues happen. He was just doing his job. There was nothing sinister about a hotel employee knocking on a door. But I couldn't shake the feeling. I looked at the deadbolt. It was locked. But deadbolts in hotels aren't like the ones on your front door at home. They can be opened from the outside with a master key. That's the whole point, so staff can get in during emergencies. I walked to the desk chair and dragged it over to the door. I tilted it and wedged the back under the door handle, the way my mother taught me when I was a teenager, and started traveling for college visits. It felt silly, paranoid. I did it anyway. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to every sound in the hallway, footsteps that came and went, the ice machine humming somewhere nearby, the elevator dinging faintly in the distance. Every noise made my heart jump. Every silence felt like someone waiting. I must have drifted off eventually, that shallow, restless sleep where you're never quite unconscious, because the next thing I remember is waking up suddenly, heart pounding, with no idea what had startled me. The room was dark, silent. The red numbers on the bedside clock said 2:47. I lay there holding my breath, straining to hear. Then I heard it, a soft click, metal turning against metal, the sound of a key sliding into a lock, the deadbolt. I sat up in bed, covers pulled to my chest, eyes fixed on the door. In the faint light bleeding under the frame from the hallway, I could see the deadbolt knob. It was turning, slowly, silently. Someone was unlocking it from the outside. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just watched. The knob finished its rotation. The deadbolt slid back with a soft thunk. Then the door handle moved, slowly, testing. The door pushed inward just an inch and stopped. The chair. The chair was holding it. For a moment, nothing happened. Just that inch-wide gap, a sliver of harsh fluorescent light cutting across the carpet like a knife. The hallway was silent. The person on the other side was silent. The whole world narrowed down to that 1-inch gap and what might come through it. Then more pressure. The door pushed harder. I heard the chair legs squeak against the carpet, sliding slightly, the back starting to tilt. Through the gap, I saw a shadow, a figure, just a dark shape against the light. But I knew who it was. I knew. Chair slid another inch. The gap widened. I could see his shoulder now, his arm, his hand flat against the door, pushing. And then, I don't know where it came from, a sound escaped my throat. Not a scream. Not really. More like a choked gasp, a strangled cry that barely made it past my lips before dying in the air. It wasn't loud. I don't know if anyone could have heard it through the walls, but he heard it. The pressure stopped, immediately. Like a switch had been flipped, the shadow went still. I heard something, a whisper, low and unintelligible, words I couldn't make out, and then the door pulled shut. Quietly, carefully. The deadbolt didn't re-engage. I heard footsteps, quick and soft, retreating down the hallway. Then nothing. I sat there in the dark, shaking so hard the bed frame rattled, for what felt like hours. I didn't move the chair. I didn't turn on the light. I just sat there, watching the door, waiting for it to open again. It didn't. Later, I don't know how much later, I heard voices in the hallway. A man's voice, then a woman's, then a knock on my door, sharp and official. "Ma'am, this is the police. We received a call about a disturbance. Are you okay in there?" I don't remember getting out of bed. I don't remember moving the chair. I just remember opening the door and seeing 2 officers standing in the hallway, flashlights in hand, and behind them, a man in pajamas and a robe, the guest from the room next door. He'd heard the chair scraping against the floor. He'd heard my strangled cry through the wall. He'd called the front desk, and when no one answered, he called 911. The police found the night auditor in the basement, near the service exit. He was carrying a key ring and wearing gloves. In his car, parked behind the building, they found zip ties, duct tape, a roll of plastic sheeting. He was arrested that night. I gave my statement at the police station. They told me he'd worked at the hotel for 2 years. Clean background check. No prior arrests. No red flags. But when they searched his apartment, they found a notebook. Dates, room numbers, descriptions of women who'd checked in alone. I was the 14th entry. I don't know what happened to the other 13. The detective wouldn't tell me, and I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. What I do know is this. If I hadn't wedged that chair under the door, he would have gotten in. The deadbolt wouldn't have stopped him. The door wouldn't have stopped him. Nothing would have stopped him except a chair that my mother told me to use when I was 16 years old. And if the man next door hadn't heard me, If he'd been a heavier sleeper, or had the TV on, or just decided it wasn't his problem, no one would have called. I think about that sometimes. I think about the 13 women in that notebook. I think about whether any of them traveled alone, whether any of them wedged a chair under the door, whether any of them made a sound that someone else heard. I don't travel for work anymore. I took a different job, less money, no travel. My boss asked why I wanted the change, and I told her I was tired of airports. That wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth is that I can't walk into a hotel lobby without scanning the face of whoever's behind the desk. I can't sleep in a room without checking the locks 3 times, without dragging furniture in front of the door, without lying awake listening for footsteps that might stop outside. I used to think being careful was enough. Now I know that being careful only works if you're also lucky. And that night, I was lucky. The man next door was awake. He heard the chair scrape. He heard me choke out a sound that barely qualified as a scream. He called for help when no one else would have known I needed it. I never got his name. The police didn't tell me and I never asked. He was just a stranger in a hotel, traveling for something I'll never know, who happened to be on the other side of a wall when everything went wrong. I owe him my life, and I'll never be able to thank him. I'm 31 now. This happened 8 months ago, and I still haven't fully processed it. I'm not sure I ever will. People ask me what happened, and I don't know how to explain it. Nothing happened, not in the way they mean. No one attacked me. No one broke into my room. No one threatened me or touched me or said a single word to me. But something happened, and I can't stop thinking about it. I work as a corporate trainer. I fly to different cities to run workshops for client companies, leadership development, communication skills, team dynamics. It's a good job. I'm good at it. And I used to like the travel, the airports, the hotels, the anonymity of being somewhere no one knows you. Used to. 8 months ago, I flew to a mid-sized city in the Midwest for a 4-day engagement. I'd been there once before, a few years earlier, and I remembered it as perfectly pleasant. Clean downtown, friendly people, good restaurants. The kind of city where the streets get quiet after 9 o'clock. I checked into a business hotel downtown, one of the nicer chains, the kind with a lobby bar and a decent gym. My room was on the 7th floor, corner unit, with a view of the street below. I unpacked, ordered room service, and went to bed early. The first workshop started at 8 the next morning. The first day went well. I ran my session, answered questions, had lunch with the client's HR team. By 5 o'clock, I was tired but satisfied. I decided to reward myself with a nice dinner, a farm-to-table place I'd seen near the hotel. I walked over in the evening light and sat at a small table by the window. That's when I first saw him. He was sitting at the bar, alone, nursing what looked like a whiskey. Average height, average build, wearing a gray jacket and dark jeans. Brown hair, maybe early 40s, clean shaven. Nothing distinctive about his face. The kind of person you'd pass on the street and immediately forget. The kind of face that slides right out of your memory. At some point during my meal, maybe halfway through my salmon, maybe during the second glass of wine, I glanced up and noticed he was looking at me, not staring, just looking, the way you might look at a painting in a museum or a bird on a fence, attentive but distant. When our eyes met, he looked away, casually, like it meant nothing. I didn't think anything of it. People glance at each other in restaurants. It's normal. It doesn't mean anything. I finished my dinner, paid the check, left a generous tip, and walked back to the hotel through the cool evening air. I didn't see him again that night. The next morning, I stopped at a coffee shop near my client's office. It was a small place, exposed brick and reclaimed wood, just a few tables and a counter manned by a barista with a sleeve of tattoos. I ordered a vanilla latte and sat by the window to check my emails before the session started. I was scrolling through my inbox half reading a message from my boss, when I felt something. That prickling awareness you get when someone's watching you. The hair on the back of your neck standing up. Your body knowing something before your brain catches up. I looked up. He was there. The same man from the restaurant, sitting at a table near the back corner with a laptop open in front of him. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed on the screen, but I recognized him immediately. The gray jacket, the forgettable face, the way he held himself, shoulders slightly hunched, like he was trying to take up less space than he occupied. My stomach did a small flip. I told myself it was a coincidence. It was a business district, 3 blocks from a major corporate campus. People get coffee. He probably worked in one of the glass towers nearby. Maybe he was a consultant or an accountant or a middle manager killing time before a meeting. There were 1,000 explanations that made perfect sense, but I noticed something that didn't fit. He wasn't typing. The laptop was open, but his hands were resting on the table on either side of it. He was just sitting there, waiting. I finished my coffee faster than I should have and left without looking back. I didn't want to seem paranoid. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing I'd noticed. The workshop went well that day. I pushed the coffee shop out of my mind and focused on the work. By the time the session ended at 4:30, I'd almost forgotten about him, almost convinced myself it was nothing. That evening I had a client dinner. One of the senior VPs wanted to take me and a few of his team members to a nicer restaurant across town, a steakhouse with white tablecloths and leather booths. A car service picked me up at the hotel. We were seated in a private dining room near the back, separated from the main floor by a frosted glass partition. The conversation was good. The food was excellent. I was starting to relax, starting to feel normal again. Then, about halfway through the main course, I excused myself to use the restroom. On my way back, I had to walk through the main dining room. That's when I saw him, sitting alone at a two-top near the entrance, a menu open in front of him. He wasn't looking at me. He was studying the menu with what appeared to be genuine interest, but it was him. Same gray jacket, same forgettable face. I stopped walking, just for a second, just long enough to be certain. 3 times in 2 days, 3 different locations, all places where I happened to be. My heart started pounding. I walked back to the private dining room and tried to act normal. I smiled at jokes. I answered questions, but I kept thinking about him. When dinner ended, I said my goodbyes in the parking lot and watched the client team drive away. The car service was supposed to pick me up in 5 minutes. I didn't want to wait outside alone, so I went back into the restaurant. From where I stood, I could see into the main dining room. His table was empty. The check folder sat on the edge, closed. He was gone. I didn't sleep well that night. The next day, day 3, I finished my workshop early. The client was happy. I had a flight the next morning and nothing to do until then. I decided to walk to a bookstore I'd seen a few blocks from the hotel. One of those independent places, narrow aisles, creaky wooden floors, the smell of old paper. I thought the walk might clear my head. The bookstore was nearly empty when I arrived. I wandered through the aisles, running my fingers along the spines, not really looking for anything specific. I was standing in the fiction section when I felt it again, that prickling on the back of my neck. I turned around. He was standing at the end of the aisle, 10 feet away, maybe less, looking at me, not pretending to browse, not glancing and looking away, just standing there, hands at his sides, looking directly at me with an expression I couldn't read. My whole body went cold. For a moment, neither of us moved. I don't know what my face looked like. I don't know if I looked scared or angry or blank. I just stood there, frozen, staring at this man who had been everywhere I'd been for 3 days. Then I walked, fast, past him, down the aisle, toward the front of the store. I didn't run. I don't know why. but I walked as fast as I could without breaking into a sprint. I pushed through the door and out onto the sidewalk. The afternoon sun was bright, almost blinding after the dim interior of the store. I started walking toward the hotel, 3 blocks away. I looked back once. He was standing outside the bookstore, watching me go. Not following, just watching. I made it back to the hotel and went straight to my room, locked the door, put the chain on, sat on the bed with my phone in my hand, trying to decide what to do. What could I do? Call the police and say a man looked at me in a bookstore? There was no crime, no threat, no contact, just a man who kept appearing wherever I went. I walked to the window and looked down at the street below. He was standing on the sidewalk across the street, looking up at the hotel. I stepped back from the glass. My heart was hammering. I didn't know if he could see me. I was 7 floors up, and the afternoon light would have been reflecting off the windows. But he was looking at the right floor. He was looking at my side of the building. I called the front desk and asked if I could switch rooms. They asked why. I said the air conditioning wasn't working right. They moved me to the 4th floor, other side of the building. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights off and stayed away from the window. Every time I heard footsteps in the hallway, I held my breath until they passed. In the morning, I checked out at 5 a.m. The lobby was empty. I took a cab to the airport and sat in the terminal for 4 hours, watching every face that walked by. He wasn't there. I flew home. I filed a police report, not because I thought it would help, but because I wanted a record. The officer was polite but didn't seem to know what to do with the information. No crime had been committed. No threats had been made. A man had looked at me in public places. That wasn't illegal. They said they'd make a note of it. 8 months later, I've never heard anything back. I don't know who he was. I don't know why he was following me. I don't know if he followed other women before me or after me. I don't know if he's still in that city, sitting in coffee shops and restaurants, watching women who travel alone. I don't know what he was waiting for. That's the part that keeps me awake. Not the fear of what happened, because nothing happened, but the fear of what could have happened, what he might have been building toward, what he might have done if I'd stayed one more night, or walked down a quieter street, or gone back to the bookstore to confront him. I travel less now. When I do, I vary my routine. I don't eat at the same restaurant twice. I don't go to coffee shops alone. I check over my shoulder more than I used to, more than anyone should have to. My friends tell me I'm being paranoid. My therapist says hypervigilance is a normal response to what I experienced. My mother says I should carry pepper spray. I don't know who's right. What I know is this. For 4 days, a man I'd never met tracked my movements through a city I didn't know. He knew where I ate dinner. He knew where I got coffee. He knew where I was staying. He stood outside my hotel and looked up at my window, and I'll never know why. Sometimes I see a man sitting alone somewhere, at a cafe, on a park bench, in an airport terminal, and my whole body tenses. I study his face, looking for something familiar, looking for forgettable features, and a gray jacket, and a way of watching that doesn't look like watching. I never see him, but I never stop looking. Because the thing about a man like that, a man who follows without speaking, who watches without acting, is that you never get closure. You never get an answer. You just get the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if he's still out there, wondering if he remembers your face the way you remember his, wondering what he was waiting for, and whether he's still waiting. That's the end of tonight's episode. 2 women, 2 business trips, 2 encounters with men who saw something they wanted and decided to get closer. One of them was saved by a chair, and a stranger who heard something through the wall. The other was saved by nothing, because nothing happened, at least nothing she can prove. That's the uncomfortable truth about these stories. Sometimes survival isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's just luck and timing and a door that didn't open all the way. And sometimes the thing that haunts you isn't what happened, it's what almost did. If tonight's episode resonated with you, consider leaving a like or a comment. If you have a story of your own, something that happened in a hotel or while traveling or anywhere you were supposed to feel safe, you can share it through the link in the description. And if you haven't already, subscribe. There's more to come. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.